This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Hello out there, this is The Discourse with Dr. Ken. We have a bit of a reverse role today. I am taking the discourse out of London, the United Kingdom. This is so because it's special day, the very last day of the EPL 2023-24 season. So I came over a week ago. By the way, I had the privilege of being in Manchester last week. I watched Arsenal beat Manchester United because that was going to be pivotal to if the EPL was going to go to the wire. And then, of course, we watched the debacle that happened with Tottenham, Man City. But it's not just about the goals. It's not just about who wins the EPL. Today, we are going to discuss the EPL and the agony of fans. Yes, there's a lot of joy around the EPL, but it's been a long, torturous, hard month for all clubs, be them in the relegation zone, in the middle zone, in the Champions League zone, and these two teams that have taken it to the wire. So today the topic is the EPL and the agony of fans. I have in the studio today Uyo-Uyo and Joseph Faulkner. While I take the program from London, Joseph, how are you today?
Good afternoon, Dr. Ken. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me on The Discourse. It's actually the most unusual show to have my voice on, but I'm actually very excited to be here today.
Fantastic. And Uyo, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Also, unusual for me to be on the show, but yes, I am thrilled actually to be here to have the discussion with you. So, yeah, ready.
No, fantastic. Like I said, I'm here in London. I'm in the UK, and I've decided to reverse the role. I came just so that I could, gauge the atmosphere from stadium to stadium on the street. You needed to be in London today. You needed to be, especially in the northern part of the city. It's all red. People hardly slept yesterday. They're around the stadium as early as 7 o'clock today. They're milling around, and I'm very sure it is like that in Nigeria. What? By the way, where the church is saying today?
Well, the feeling so far is a bit tense too. I think, especially Arsenal fans, this is a very strange terrain for Arsenal fans. They've not been here in a long while, so being in a situation where some Arsenal fans actually have not seen their team lift the Premier League trophy before. So this is actually a great opportunity for that to happen. So most Arsenal fans that I have spoken to, they are optimistic, even though the chances are very slim for that to happen. But they are very, very optimistic that there's a possibility going by how well they've played throughout the season. But yeah, a bit tensed. Manchester City fans are not as much in Nigeria. There are very few of them, and that's because of the historical kind of club that Manchester City is. There's a lot of history when it comes to Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester United amongst Nigerians, but you hardly find that in Manchester City.
Let me give you these statistics. Talking about desert years, Manchester United waited 26 years to win the EPL in 1992.
Yeah.
Chelsea waited 50 years to win the EPL in 2004.
Yeah.
Manchester City waited 44 years to win their first Premiership League in 2011. Liverpool waited 30 years to win their first Premier League. This week will make it just 20 years Arsenal won it the last time. So what's all these views about Arsenal and desert years? Statistics is showing me here that 81% of Nigeria CEOs are Arsenal fans. So there must be something about Arsenal and CEO and better management. I haven't said that. Even our presidency is getting involved and so. So how come we like this property called football? Yet we have the potential, we have the youth, we know it's a big transformational platform for Nigeria, and we ignore it, but we enjoy the one that comes from abroad.
Well, it's the English Premier League is a property itself, and the UK, the British media, the government itself have been able to totally understand how to sell that property. If you do remember, I don't know how many people can recall, but in the early 90s, it wasn't the English Premier League that was the talk of big leagues around the world. It was the Italian Serie A then.
The German
The German Bundesliga. The biggest. Playing for AC Milan, Desai in AC Milan. The big names were all going to Italy to play. Ronaldo, So then came the shift in the late 90s when the EPL began to take prominence around the world. This is just because they understand the value of marketing. They've been able to market the property that they have. Right now, the biggest players in the world want to play in the English Premier League. And there's so much investment in the English Premier League, and there's so much money. For instance, the United States of America, football isn't the biggest sport in the US. I mean, it's probably the fourth most biggest sport in the US. But soccer. Well, they call it soccer, soccer in the US. Yeah. But the amount of money that NBC, one of the most prominent TV stations in the US, paid for rights to show the English Premier League on a weekly basis is absolutely unbelievable. Over 2.7 billion euros just to get the English Premier League to be shown or televised to broadcast in the US. That goes to show how much of value the English Premier League, and just like I mentioned earlier, it is the fourth most interesting sports in the US. They love basketball much more than they love football. But to show the interest that the EPL has been able to garner around, that goes to show that this property is very marketable. To actually get to the point, I think the job of marketing is more of it. They've been able to market the property. They've been able to sell it so much that Nigerians know the story of every club. Nigerians are talking about Luton Town. Like, how many Nigerians understand where Luton is? But we know the certain players that are in Luton. We know their foundation, how they came in from the championship. It is just because they've been able to sell the property well. It's not like football is not being played around the world. Football is being played in Nigeria here. What's different? It's just the story behind it that's attracted people. People feel like they are involved. If you belong to, we were mentioning being an Arsenal fan here. Most Arsenal fans feel they feel like they have a family today. Everybody feels like there's something to gain from it, because it's a property that they are attached to and they've been able to identify with. So I think that's what works.
Sorry, Doc, if I may just quickly add to it.
Yes, Joseph, I was going to come to you in your own estimation.
Yes.
And I'm sure, you're a guy who follows the Nigerian football and the Nigerian league and the property called, if at all is a property, we'll come to the football in Nigeria. Why is Nigerian football the way it is? How come we don't quite understand this property and this potential? Why are we driving with the handbrake on?
Well, the simple truth is the involvement of government. For instance, our league.
The involvement of government.
Yeah, the involvement of government. That's the reason we're not moving forward. The football is not moving forward. I was going to say something quickly before you asked me this question, and thank God it links to each other. One of the reasons the Premier League became this big, when the Premier League started, the clubs that came together to form the Premier League, one of the things they decided was they can make a lot more money than whatever they were making, and they wanted to be autonomous. They wanted to be a body on their own, and then open their football to foreigners. And then years after they started, they encountered some problems at the beginning. Years after they started, they continued reducing the laws guiding, or the law that guide how they allow foreigners into the league. And the moment, the moment they were able to open up their league to foreigners, to Nigerians, to Africans, Europeans, South Americans, it became what everybody wanted to do. And then the monies they now started making from allowing several top talents come into the country. Every sponsor wanted to be, every brand wanted to identify with them. But in Nigeria, you look at the NPFL, and there are just two privately owned clubs in the NPFL, and that's it. They are the only two well-run clubs, the only two privately owned clubs. They have a proper that Sporting Lagos and Remo Stars. And I've been to both match to Remo Stars. Let me start with Remo Stars. They have their own stadium. They are not using a government-owned stadium. They have their own stadium that is CAF standard. They have two training pitches in that building. They have a hotel and hostels for their players. So on match days, the players don't come from their homes. They are already in camp a day before the games. The same thing that is obtained abroad. And because it's privately owned, there is accountability. And every sponsor who wants to bring money to you wants to understand what you're doing with the money they're giving to you. But that doesn't exist in the Nigerian Professional Football League.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
One of the places we looked into during this trip is Luton. And I'm happy that Joseph Faulkner mentioned Luton. You wouldn't imagine the Luton Stadium in the UK here. You go through people's houses.
Yep.
To get into the stadium.
I've been there. And I know it's like Oneko Stadium.
Before the stadium was renovated, there's a rail line behind the stadium. When the trains are going past, the smoke will be so heavy that they'll have to call a break. I'm talking about the 90s and many years ago. But today, because of the money of EPL has brought into the equation, money from television, from broadcasting, from advertising, all the 20 teams in the league, including the championship, have enough money to develop their infrastructure and facility. And advertisers, like you say, are very happy to follow these teams. Advertisers are happy to advertise there because they deliver the eyeballs. These eyeballs are calculated, it is verifiable, there's a scientific process to it, and more importantly, there is accountability around it. So, Joseph, you are saying that the problem is government?
Government involvement. Government involvement. So there is no...
And because government is involved, of course, you know that accountability becomes an issue.
And that's a problem. And that's a huge problem. Once sponsors can't ascertain how you're spending the money. I remember there was a time there was a battle between two telecom giants to sponsor the Nigerian Professional Football League. And one of them put together a proper presentation to tell everybody how they were going to run the MPFL. That they wanted to bring professionals, not government officials, professionals to run the Nigerian Professional Football League. And the money is meant for the clubs, that they wanted to pay the clubs directly. So if they're going to sponsor, each club is entitled to a fixed amount and then further amounts based on where they finish on the table. And they said they wanted to do the payment by themselves. But then I know there was a lot of problem, a lot of back and forth, because the MPFL body, the LMC back then, as they were, didn't want that to happen. Instead, they wanted the money paid to them. And you have problems like teams winning the Nigerian Professional Football League and not getting paid for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then you're asking yourself, why do I want to come and play next season? You have government officials, these government-owned clubs that have two different contracts for players, one for the club and the one they submit to the league body. And you're asking yourself, in what world do you have two different contracts for the same player? So players live in the middle of the season because they don't have a proper contract binding them to the clubs. So they leave whenever they like. But look at Remo Stars and Sporting Lagos. They have academies that are vibrant. They are selling players abroad. Everybody knows how much they are selling these players. They are signing players and they are telling the whole world how much they are signing the players, how much the player salaries are. You can't say that. You can't say the same of the government-owned clubs.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when you see contracts being signed with clubs in the EPL or in climes where things are being done well, the Italian Serie A, you see these contracts, they are being put out there. You can read the terms of the contracts, you can read the conditions of the contracts and all of that. But that doesn't apply here in Nigeria. Everything seems to be hidden. Clubs go into contracts with players. You don't know how much the sign-on fee is. You don't know how many years those players have signed on. How do you want these big conglomerates or these big companies to identify with things like that they can't actually see and verify? It's very, very difficult in this terrain. Plus, the bureaucratic nature of running things in Nigeria doesn't help the situation here in the country.
Yes, it is a predicament. In fact, I deliberately brought this up because today we are celebrating the EPL. We are talking about all the fun and the business and big money around it, all the excitement. But look at Nigeria, more than 200 people. I hear that over 61% of our population are young people below 30, and we're talking of unemployment. We're talking of possibilities of engagements, and football presents this opportunity. Yet we have government upon government, successive governments not paying attention. So it's like ostrich and head in the sand. Having said that, let's go back to the EPL. Like I told you, EPL in England is followed in the UK, is followed by all manner of people. Fans don't flip. They are not promiscuous. They stay with their teams. Come rain, come shine. In fact, I've seen families from two generations: grandmother, grandfather, father, son. In fact, in Liverpool, when I went there, you could see in a family, in a household, the husband supports Everton and the wife supports Liverpool, and they live peacefully. But the day there's going to be a derby, you can imagine what happens in that kind of family. But I have with me here, because we're going to talk about the relegated teams, and they have huge followership. I have with me here Chioma Efobi. I mean, she born in Kampala, Uganda, but she is of Nigerian descent and a UK citizen. I was asking her what is the fiber of followership in the UK is different from Nigeria. Why is it so?
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Yes, I'm here with Dr. K to talk about EPL, which I know is very close to his heart. And here, it's not so much a religion, but a culture as well. And he mentioned that it was 9 months of playership, but it's actually more than 9 months. It starts from when the fixtures are announced. There's so much buzz, so much excitement, and at that time, just to explain to you the culture, we start booking our holidays for for which games to meet, and everyone's now trading to get away day games and stuff like that. And we've also it's not so much the games as well. Another big part we have is like today, last day, and it's not so much who wins the title. There are so many things at stake for us. It's the who wins the title where it's dramatic, because sometimes it's not dramatic, but this time there's a lot of drama because it could be one team or the other. It's also things like who's going to go into the championship, the Euro. Like the last time a while back, it was Tottenham and Arsenal. And so there's that gripping tension. It's also who gets relegated, so there's always so much drama. And as a fan here, everything entertains us. I'm not sure if you know about the fantasy game.
Fantasy Premier League.
The Fantasy Premier League, and that's one that everyone gets involved with. You have interdepartments, you have the accounts and HR or this and that. And it's fast and furious. No one's taking it lightly, because you've only got 100 million to spend, and it's stuff that everyone in the office culture gets involved with. And it's interesting to know that football had always been traditionally a working class sport, but now it's sort of worked itself up everywhere. Everyone gets involved. There's bragging rights if your team's doing well, and you sort of hide your face on a Monday morning if maybe things haven't gone too well. So I know, but you take it in the chin anyway. So there's all that fun, that we all have here. I follow Dolly Chamlet, and I'm sure no one knows Dolly Chamlet, but it's because I've lived in Dulwich, and they're not even in the conference. They're nowhere.
Nope.
But I'm always looking out for Dulwich. Oh, how is Dulwich doing? And my younger ones, they follow Bromley, and Bromley's only just got into conference, and there's so much excitement. So where we are not in the EPL, there's just this thing with football where you genuinely want to support your region and your team, and so it just goes from tradition to tradition. I know when now I'm in Woolston, I know when Woolston is playing. I know. I sort of keep a keen eye. So as much as, and there's so we always want to fight for the grassroots. So it's tradition, because you want to support where you stay. It improves everyone. It's a good talking point. You know the lads, you know the people, you beat out in the park with them, because on Saturdays and Sundays you go to the park. So you see people who always trained, and when they then go on to the bigger clubs, you sort of tend to follow them to the bigger clubs as well.
You heard that. You see, that was deliberate invite for Choma FOB, just so that Nigerian fans will understand that following a club is not so much about who wins the trophy and who didn't win in the last 20 years. You could see the caliber of clubs she follows, and this person has lived in England all her life, isn't it? It's like that with many big families in Nigeria. Now, talking about relegation, Joseph, Sheffield United is relegated, Burnley is relegated, Luton today we'll find out, in fact, is almost relegated. But they still have life in them, isn't it? Why is it so important not to be relegated, Joseph Faulkner?
First of all, you're going to be playing with the big boys. You're going to be in the Premier League, and that comes with a lot of benefits. One of the benefits is the monies that come with being in the Premier League. You don't get the same amount in the Championship, even though the playoffs generate a lot of interest and a lot of monies and all of that. But when you remain in the Premier League, there's boundless opportunities for you. Boundless, or you can make as much. Okay, so first of all, each position in the Premier League is guaranteed, I think, £3.1 million. That's your basic, whether you kick a ball or not. Before the season starts, you're guaranteed 3.1 million naira. Then based on where you finish in the table, the money increases, and then TV money is there. TV money is there. Advert money is there. And when we say TV money, it's not just local games, cup games, that's all the domestic cups, and then international games as well. So you have boundless opportunities to make. And for a lot of the owners of the club, this is business. It's not just entertainment for them. So it's business. They're able to reinvest in the clubs. Leicester City won the league, and the things that followed, the kind of money they made that year and the following year playing in the Champions League, turned that club around. They were able to stop buying the cheapest players, and they started competing for some really established players. Eventually it didn't work for them anyway, but we saw Leeds United do the same thing. We saw Blackburn do the same thing in their time, because when you remain in the Premier League, TV money in the Premier League is what a lot of them actually wait for, because it's huge.
Okay, fantastic. Now we're talking about the three that have been relegated anyway, but there are three coming up. Like you just mentioned, Leicester City. They're back. Won the championship. They are coming to the EPL. There is Ipswich. By the way, a young man in Ipswich, McKenna, is doing a wonderful job for Ipswich to qualify. And then there's a playoff coming up between, I think it's Leeds and Southampton. Yeah. So Uyo-Uyo, why is it important that you make the Premiership from that time? What does it take to stay there? Because we've seen Burnley and company come up, and we've seen them go down. Is it the kind of football you need to? Are there adjustments you need to make when you get there to the EPL?
First of all, I think most Burnley fans are not appreciative of what Vincent Kompany has done. He practically turned the team from the hard knock football that they used to play.
Yeah,
to
because you knew Burnley with that.
Yeah, that's what Burnley is used to. He turned the team to a standard Pep Guardiola kind of football, tiki-taka kind of football. That didn't work out in the English Premier League.
Poor imitation of Man City.
Very poor imitation of Man City. But one of the reasons why it was that bad was because they lost a bunch of their players that put them through to the English Premier League, likes of Teller that won the Bundesliga title with Bayern Leverkusen. He was a major part of that Burnley team the previous season, but they lost him to Leverkusen. A bunch of their players that they had to lose them, because these players some of them were on loan to Burnley. Others actually had to move on because they were playing so good and they were bought out of that. So leaving the Championship and going to the Premier League, the Premier League is a different ball game. You're playing with the best of the best players, and it's hard for you to play against those players when you don't have a team that has very good players. That's one of the reasons why Burnley is where they are. They don't have that kind of, yes, they did get a lot of money qualifying from the Championship, the TV rights money that came in. Joseph Faulkner earlier was talking about international money, money that comes from TV from other continents that are watching the English Premier League is enough for you to be able to invest. But of course, you can't compare Burnley's investment to the likes of Manchester City or Arsenal. So it's a big problem for these clubs that come up. to be able to match up. But most of them do find a way to stable the ship. That's the reason why Burnley fans were asking Vincent Kompany, why don't you just play the normal football that we know? We can't do tiki-taka with Man City. They're going to defeat us. Why not just play the standard kick and follow? Let's play the long balls and stay hard and block our defense. Maybe that'll help us stay in the Premier League, And I think these clubs that are coming up, the likes of Ipswich that you mentioned, that is being coached by former Manchester United coach McKennie, maybe they are going to adopt things like that, because the first thought is after getting to the Premier League is staying in the Premier League. That's the most important thing. And I think these clubs, learning from what we've seen from Luton Town to Burnley, that is the priority, and staying there is the major thing because of the kind of money you're going to make from staying in the Premier League.
And Doctor, you were asking what they need to do to stay in the Premier League. The first thing is simple. You need to get a bit more experience into the side. You look at your Leicester City. One of the beautiful things for them is they kept some of the players that went down with them. Wilfred Ndidi, Ian Acha and the rest of them. Even though we're hearing with Jamie Vardy and the rest of, we're hearing that Ndidi might be leaving the club, and all of that. But what they've done is they've kept the core of the team, that went down, and that's why they were able to come back up immediately. And I'm very sure Leicester City, the owner, the way he thinks, they're going to invest on bringing in some experienced players into their side. Now, the teams that are going down, there are a few players in those teams that actually looks like they can actually play in the big time. They can still play in the Championship, and you are going to see some of these teams, Leeds, Ipswich, pick some players from those teams. But what they need to do, the first thing is you've earned some money by winning the Championship and coming through the playoffs, because it's no little money as well. They make some good money from that. You're able to invest it in the personnel, because all attention, like Uyo said, is we have to stay in the Premier League. We have to stay in the Premier League, because once we're able to stay, we make a bit more money and we're able to improve on the team, and that's going to be the goal. So the first thing is they must improve their playing, the squad.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Uyo, for the benefit of Burnley fans, now that we are talking management, so that they learn one or two things. You see, it's not just Vincent Kompany's fault. It is more of the fault of the board that appointed Vincent Kompany, because you don't give what you don't have. If you wanted some kind of output, then you appoint an expert who is attuned to that kind of output. What do I mean? It's like a company, the board sits and the board wants expansion. Then you don't go and appoint a CEO more of finance background who does more of consolidation and profit. If you're going to do developmental and future proofing and marketing, that would inform the kind of CEO and the leader who should lead that company for that era. Yeah. So if Burnley wanted that kind of football that guaranteed they survive, it doesn't have to be beauty, then the appointment of Vincent Kompany was wrong in the first place. And you see how it works.
Yeah,
so it goes down all the way from the board, So Vincent Kompany does not know how to play this kind of football.
But Vincent Kompany brought them up. And he brought them up by playing this style of football and blowing everybody. Yeah. He blew everybody away in the Championship.
They won the Championship, I think, 4 games.
With four games to spare.
Yeah, to spare, And you can't run away from the fact that there's a bit of sentiment to this thing. For a coach that came in from Anderlecht, from Belgium. In his first season with Burnley, he took them up to the Premier League. Any management that sees that will be so pleased. Of course, they will give him another reason to stay with the club. So yes,
maybe they should have looked at his team. Okay, if it's a Burnley head, but they get
so a little bit of experience would have helped.
One of the problems they had was they didn't recruit well. They needed
was
they lost a lot of players and just didn't replace those players.
They didn't replace those players.
So we'll move on. Talking about Luton, by the way, I met a journalist called John Cross. He writes for the Daily Mirror, and he said the Luton was deliberate in getting Lukanga from Arsenal, and getting Ross Barkley. Why? Because Lukanga had to pull followership from that level. And bring effervescence to Luton, drag into Luton the kind of thing they wouldn't have expected in terms of followership. Same for Ross Barkley. So you guys are right. This decisions, these recruitments are deliberate, and there is business, and there is a lot more tied to it than just winning games, just for the benefit of the fans. Now, Joseph, let's talk about the middle table teams. It's not just about winning the EPL today. There are people who are
teams like Manchester United and Chelsea.
Qualify for the Europa League, and then we'll talk about the Champions League and the EPL. Joseph, is it not surprising to you that the likes of Manchester United is talking about Conference League and Europa League?
I'm not surprised. This is not banter. I'm not surprised that United are in the situation they're in right now. After Sir Alex Ferguson left, they have refused to refresh the team and build it properly. I think the management, the owners, because of the outcry from the fans, they still believe that they must win at all times, as opposed to, you know what, Alex Ferguson left, and a lot of the players were aging and needed to go as well. There were a lot. They still have a lot of dead wood in the team that need to go. Instead of doing that, you are spending huge sums of money trying to bring big players. You brought Ronaldo back. You were signing the Uruguayan. You brought in Gallo, and I started asking myself that what exactly is the focus of the team, and until Manchester United gets to the point where they realize that, you know what, that era of dominating the Premier League, that area where they were the all-in-all in the Premier League, that area is gone. Let them refresh. The same thing Arsenal has done. Refresh the team. If they had allowed David Moyes to stay, that was what I felt then. I felt like David Moyes then would have done a good job of rebuilding that team. That was how I felt then, and I still feel so today. Yeah, to lay the foundation of a new Manchester United, because that's what Manchester United needs right now. It's not about just buying 2-3 big players, and you look at the whole structure of the club. What's wrong? There's something fundamentally wrong. Ronaldo complained about a whole lot of things, and people are seeing, all the team doesn't look together a lot of times. So I'm not surprised that they are fighting to be in the Conference League. Everybody will say, "Oh, it's United; they must always be in the Champions League." But no, they are not playing in such a way to be in the Champions League, and it started before the season.
Just to add to that,
Uyo, talking about Conference League and Champions League, what business does Chelsea have playing in there? Because if money could buy love, why are they in that?
Well, if money could buy the Champions League, Chelsea would have won it 2 seasons ago. I think Chelsea they've made some really good investments. As much as the investments are yet to pay off, especially this season, but you really need to look at the back end of what they are trying to do. Most of the players that they signed this season are young players. Most of them they are below the age of 22, 23, and these are players that have huge prospects. They are players that people think will do well in the future.
Like Modric.
Modric is going to be a good player for
Palmer, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Chukwuemeka. These are all players that everybody thinks in the future they are going to be great players. So when you talk about investment and Chelsea, they've done very well in that level. But the problem with Chelsea also is the fans and the club are accustomed to always winning. They are so accustomed to winning titles, getting trophies every season. So just one season where they were not able to get a trophy or get to be in the Champions League, it looked like hell had let loose. Everything is crumbling. A bit of patience is what Chelsea needs. And I think Mauricio Pochettino at the tail end of this season has been able to prove that there's some level of consistency now with the club. You can see they are playing better, scoring goals, and the decision to bring in Cole Palmer was very huge for the club. But aside that, Faulkner was mentioning Manchester United. Yes, I'm a Manchester United fan. Let me just put that out there first of all. Yes, because I'm about to go into deep waters. I think I think Manchester United got it all wrong. Yes, with after Alex Ferguson, the era of Sir Alex Ferguson had ended, but Manchester United fans and the club were still living. They were still living in there. I think that was the biggest problem with the club. And also, Ed Woodward, who was the former CEO of Manchester United, did make huge strides when it comes to business with Manchester United. Manchester United, as at now, is still one of the most valuable football clubs in the world.
Properties.
It's
the third biggest brand. Yeah?
in the world.
The biggest brand, in fact, in the world football.
Yeah, and that's because of what the kind of followership Manchester United have attracted, and that followership came off the fact that they were doing very well on the pitch. So Ed Woodward and his team forgot that Manchester United got to where they got to because they were doing well on the pitch. So they focused so much on making this entity a sellable property so much that they forgot about the football itself. You're buying players anyhow. Any player that comes through, they buy them. The likes of Pogba that the club had left.
The United had no reason bringing Pogba back.
And for some crazy reason brought him back. Players that you could see that their attention, world record fee, so you could see that the attention of the club wasn't really about football. It was more of business.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
There are other two teams that are in that bracket, and I'm talking about Newcastle and Aston Villa. Joseph Faulkner, what a hell of a job Emery has done at Aston Villa.
I think for me, he's the manager of the season. And for Aston Villa, that's a club you can say their 2023-2024 season was a huge success. At the start of the season, if you had told them they'll qualify for Europa League or the Conference UEFA Conference League, they'll be happy to take it. But with Emery has always been a very, very good coach, and his CV, is a testament to how good a technician he is. Yes, when he got to Arsenal,
technician, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a technician.
Arsenal needed manager, not technician.
Yeah, Arsenal needed a manager because what Arsenal needed was somebody who will change the culture, change the attitude and everything, and that was how they got, and that's why
keep the classical elegance.
Exactly. So, but Emery is a technician. He just wants to play football. You give him anything.
He's working class.
Exactly, and that's what he's done with this Aston Villa team. Will they repeat it next season? I don't know, but for this season, for me, the manager of the year, and what he has done is an amazing job with Aston Villa. They've had this, I think they are the overachievers this season. They are the overachievers.
Talking about Coach Uyo-Uyo, even the manager of Tottenham and
Postecoglou.
Yeah, people are querying, he's querying the culture of Tottenham.
Yeah.
Now. What do you think of that team from North London called Tottenham?
The coach, Ange, is actually right.
Thank God we're already. Dr. Ken's question, I almost answered the Arsenal week.
No, please don't. Arsenal, London rivals, so yeah. But I think Tottenham, perennial underachievers, never winning a trophy. The reason why Harry Kane left the club because he wanted to win a trophy by all means. Unfortunately, he's not been able to do that. But I think Tottenham, just like Coach did say, the mindset of the club needs a total restructuring. They are so comfortable with being the chasers, those that actually are trying to get it, but frustrate others from getting it. So I think there's a huge the CEO of the club needs to invest strongly in the players. You can't lose a player like Harry Kane and then you have a certain Richarlison as your striker this season and expect to go to the Champions League. It's always going to be difficult. So a lot of investment, big name players need to get into the club, or else next season they'll find themselves in the same place they found themselves this season.
Yeah, one thing is to want to invest. Another is, are you capable of attracting those caliber of players? Now we are going to go into the Champions League proper. The teams,
the big boys.
Traditionally, what represents champions, the top four clubs in England for you traditionally, and today has that shifted? What is the big top four now in England?
So the traditional top four in England used to be Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool. Those were the traditional top four guys. But then that has shifted, and it has shifted drastically. It's now Manchester City always there at the top, and then Liverpool. because they found a way to create a little bit of rivalry with Manchester City in the last 6, 7, 8 years. And then any one of Arsenal, City, and Liverpool can add any other two because the other Manchester United, because the other ones just fluctuate, But the top four, the traditional top four in England are still there, and that's why people still talk about Chelsea and Manchester United, despite the fact that they are not doing so well. Even when Arsenal couldn't get into the top four, those period when Arsenal finished eighth in the table twice, everybody still talked about Arsenal. Arsenal still made more TV monies, more than some teams that were finishing in the top four, because everybody wants to watch these guys, right? But if you're talking about the table itself, and right now it's Manchester City, Liverpool, and then maybe Arsenal and United, or Arsenal and Chelsea, or Chelsea and United, whichever one decides to be serious. But these days, I think these days it's become, if you're going to look at 2 seasons, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and whoever else decides to join them.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Uyo-Uyo, are you surprised that Arsenal has taken it to the wire? And if yes, what did you think Arteta did? By the way, talking about manager of the season, he's in contention, isn't it?
Yeah, he is.
And he totally deserves it. I know we spoke about Unai Emery, but truth be told, Arteta deserves a shout for manager of the season. I think Arsenal have done very well pushing City to this point.
What do you think is responsible for that?
It's the coach. The coach has stayed in the club for 5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be his 5th season. He's had enough time to throw out the players that he doesn't want and bring in the players that he needs into the club, as we can all see.
Is it just time he needed, or vision and courage?
Well, time is a big factor. Because imagine if he wasn't given the time to build this squad that they currently have.
He came to a club who had the tradition to let managers. There are the club you just mentioned who have 10 managers in 11 seasons.
Yeah, but
and they have young players who are going to go through that.
Yeah, but Arsenal also did sign Unai Emery
and got rid of him.
And got rid of him in a few months.
So I think I think one of the things that worked for Arsenal, when the son of the owner, Josh came into management, he brought new ideas, and one of the things he decided with Edu was, you know what, let's rebuild this team. And the moment they were able to agree, that the team needed rebuilding, they sat down, got Arteta, and Arteta gave them a plan and milestones to measure the growth, and they were all happy. And they were all on board. The second, Arteta's first full season, rather, Arsenal were on a losing streak, and a lot of fans were shouting Arteta out, and there were protests at the stadiums and all of that. If you watched it All or Nothing on Amazon, you will see there was a time that Josh had to go and meet Arteta in the canteen, and he sat down with him, and it was like, "How are you feeling?" And he told him there and there that, you know what, I'm with you. Whatever your decisions are, however this is happening, I am with you. Yeah, and we're going to go through this together. And that's all he needed. Yeah, the support, the confidence of the owners, the support of the owners, and then he himself had the courage and the vision, and then the know-how, to go about it.
I think the word also, you mentioned the courage. The taking out a player as big as Aubameyang and Ozil, having issues with them and telling them the bus stops here, you're done. You need to leave the club. That courage shows that Arteta had a vision and an idea of how he wanted to play, the kind of players he needed. So yeah, time, courage were huge factors, but being able to stand his ground and say, this is what I think we should do. And it's actually working right now.
I was listening to Graham Souness last week, and he said, listen, all this acclaim around Pep Guardiola, that he doesn't believe in it, that he thinks that Guardiola is just riding the wave, that every club he's been to, is a club that wins anyway, Barcelona, Bayern Munich. That until Guardiola takes a smaller club or middle table club and achieve the feat the likes of Arteta have achieved, then he will consider him one of the greatest. Do you agree with that?
I don't. And I say this, there's a level you get to in life, and there are some kind of offers that will never come to you anymore because you are way beyond those offers. Nobody's going to offer me the job of, what will I put it? A a researcher in any media house anywhere in the world, and it's not being arrogant. It's not beyond that level. There's a level you get to in life. You know that some jobs are beneath you, no matter, because you're too qualified for those kind of jobs. And Pep Guardiola has built himself and his CV to a point where only the biggest clubs will come for him. Only the biggest clubs will call for him. So I've heard I heard Graham Souness say this.
United. Why didn't United go for him?
So for instance, United can go for Pep.
They did go for Pep. Ferguson had said it times and time again.
No, Ferguson he wanted Pep to come,
but it just didn't work out.
So United is still a big team.
Maybe they didn't have the kind of funds and structure.
No,
maybe at that time,
culture.
Yeah, culture. As at that time, also Pep had just left Barcelona.
And he wanted a year off.
Then Bayern Munich came in. I think the project for Bayern Munich was so good you couldn't turn down the offer.
Pep likes clubs where he's in total control. Mm-hmm. Okay. He has to be in control. You can't sign any player without his approval. Mm-hmm. You can't. The diet, everything. Pep must be in control, and that's the same mentality Arteta brought to Arsenal.
Today we discussed the EPL and the agony of fans, and this agony too comes with happiness. Next season, by the way, is hot enough because the transfer window is in England here. All attention have shifted the transfer window.
Yeah.
Maybe these clubs will have the kind of addition that will make the difference next season and take the right kind of decisions that would present them the kind of managers that can interpret their vision. It's all about vision, it's all about courage, and it's all about making the right investment and decisions at the right time, which is akin to every other business.
Arsenal hasn't won a trophy. Would you call that successful?
That's a successful season.
but I think for the fact that they've been able to chase Manchester City this far, yes, they took it to the wire. For that reason, I think it's successful season.
For me, fighting for the title 2 seasons in a row, look at where Arsenal is coming from, to being able to do this success for me.
Yeah, but next season they shouldn't do the same
next
thing.
Season.
That would be
season,
success.
Next season will take care of itself.
It will take care of itself.
Football is like biscuits; you don't know where it will.
Exactly.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Uyo-Uyo and Joseph Faulkner. Traditionally,
pleasure.
I normally take music for the week. I don't know if two of you have agreed. In fact, it's normally a proverb and a music for the week. I don't know if you've agreed.
Uyo will do that. He's a traditional chief.
Well, what should I do? Your song? I think anything you pick,
Maybe
Dr.
the
Ken.
anthem, isn't it?
No, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I'd rather hear the Liverpool. You never walk alone. Just because I respect
Talking
what Klopp
about
has
Liverpool
done.
in 1 minute.
Yeah.
Faulkner, do you think Slot is the right choice?
No, they're about to experience their own desert years. I can tell you that.
You believe that?
I think same. He
so
doesn't have
that appointment in 1 minute.
Well, it was available. He was the best of the available lot.
lack of coaches.
Yeah, so like we say, when desirable is not available
becomes desirable.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Enjoy the game as it comes. I'm heading to the Emirates. I have 1 hour to catch that game, and I hope that by next week
we'll celebrate.
I seriously don't think so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and have a great week ahead of you, you fans out there, and enjoy your week.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.